What is the most lawful evil thing you have witnessed? I'm a nurse. Walked into a hospice patient's room full of family fighting about inheritances and the will over their dying relative. One of the visitors called me back into the room and asked if there was any way to speed the process along. She asked if things would go faster if they put a magnet over the patient's pacemaker, an effort to deactivate the device. She went on to explain that they were from out of town. They'd bought tickets to a live show and were worried about missing it. Basically, it was taking too long for their family member to die and it was ruining their evening. All of this was within earshot of my super sweet patient. My blood was boiling. Are healthcare workers not allowed to ask the family to leave? Because if I was in your shoes they would have rode my boot out the door. I'm not a gambler, so I don't know if these are all over the place. But the only time I've ever been in a casino, I saw a cash machine that would give you an instant second mortgage on your house. This was in Reno in 1989 at a family reunion. I stood there looking at it and realized I was standing in front of evil incarnate. Holy crap, that's predatory as frick. Civil asset forfeiture. $25,000 was legally taken from my grandfather who has Alzheimer's but wasn't diagnosed at the time and could tell the cops why he had that much money on him to buy a new truck, because he forgot. The cops just took the money and left without any charges being filed. We didn't find out until a year later when the police department sent a receipt of seizure to his house and we found it when we were cleaning. Couldn't do anything about it because the police department already spent the money. Woman at her best friend's funeral, who also was a serial sewer, was in the funeral procession when she stopped her car suddenly. The parents of the recently deceased were in the car behind her and bumped her bumper from behind. You know how slowly those processions drive. The woman sued the parents for back and neck injuries and won. Last postcard we got from this woman was a pic of her dancing it up in Greece. Her family won't even let her come to visit on their properties anymore for fear she'd fall and sue. What a piece of work. This is more corporate evil than anything else. Had a customer. We are a small business making super specialty products. Put down $30,000. Take delivery of our product. Then I think it will be cheaper just to sue you than to pay you the remaining $30,000. Of course I thought, no way. We have all the signed paperwork and everything. 3 months later he got to keep our product without paying us. What were the effects? Well, due to legal fees etc, which we had to carry, and the fact that down payments go to suppliers, my partners and I had to open up our personal bank accounts to keep the company afloat. All of our employees got paid, but we the owners had to forego salaries until it was settled. And because word gets around, we had to deal with that too. Total balls. A company I used to work for went bust because the owner was staying sloppy drunk and gambling all the money away. He came in one Monday morning and told everybody to pack up their personal stuff and leave. I gave my notice a couple of months earlier and actually received my vacation pay and final paycheck. Nobody else got another dime and payday was supposed to be Wednesday for the last 2 weeks. I felt really bad for everyone except my piece of crap boss. He interviewed at my new company and when they asked me about him I suggested they not hire him. They didn't. My next door neighbor had a foster daughter. She was trying to adopt her. The mother heard about the adoption and decided she suddenly wanted her kid back. After a few parenting classes and drug tests the little girl was forcibly removed by the courts and put back into her mother's care. Even though her mom was a drug addicted piece of crap who hadn't seen her child for over almost 2 years. And had previous cases with Child Protective Services. Close to a month later the mom's boyfriend raped and killed the little girl. Saw in the news where a lesbian couple adopted a baby girl, but Barman was allowed to revoke the adoption 2 months later. A week later, Barman's boyfriend strangled the baby to death for crying. My piece of crap uncle who sued his 74-year-old mother. Long story but my uncle lost the case BTW but it left my grandma in serious debt for the rest of her life and he couldn't care less. Girl in high school had a mad ex decide to post the nudes she sent him on her Facebook page and tag the entire school on the posts. She went to the police about it and they told her they could prosecute the guy, but she would also be prosecuted for producing and distributing child pee. One of my friends owes almost $50,000 in student loans that he doesn't remember taking out. The reason he doesn't remember taking them out is because his school, which was a for-profit college that has since closed, convinced him to sign a document when he first enrolled at age 17 which essentially gave them the right to take out loans on his behalf in order to pay his tuition. They didn't really explain to him what the document was, they just got him to sign it amongst a flurry of paperwork. The school then took out several private loans with an exorbitant interest rate, and my friend just started getting letters out of the blue the year after he graduated. When he was in school, whenever these loans would show up on his student portal, they were named a confusing code number, like X4,357,545 HFY5 or something like that, and classified as financial aid. So he thought he was getting financial aid. Apparently this has happened to a lot of people, but he was told that there's nothing he can do about it, especially since the school has closed. I'm not sure about the precise legality, but he contacted multiple entities to discuss it and all of them said there's nothing he can do because he signed a contract willingly. This doesn't feel like it should be legal, but the attorneys say that there's nothing they can do. He even spoke to somebody who works for the private loan company. The representative felt really bad for him, helped him drastically reduce his monthly fee to a payable amount, said that the same thing actually happened to her. She owes $10K, and there's nothing she can do about it either. In the US a 17-year-old can't enter into a contract. My ex had a long list of mental health issues, stemming from years of sexual abuse as a child. She has tried to kill herself several times. Twice, in the 3 years we were together. Her parents admitted her into a local clinic. She spent 3 days there. I was so shocked at what qualified as help. It was more like glorified babysitting. She came out, feeling no better, but now hit with a $15,000 bill. $15K, for 3 days of supervised DV and reading, with 2 sessions with a psychiatrist to evaluate her. That's not including overnight stay at hospital and ambulance. Insurance covered most, but not all. Oh, and the kicker, after her stay, the doctor prescribed her medication. $3,000 for her prescription. We thought the Walmart employee made a mistake. She ended up going to a different doctor, who thankfully helped her out big time. Mental health needs to be made more affordable. She was 19 at the time and already hit with a huge bill to add to her school loans and car payment. Stories like these really make me feel thankful for not living in America. The red tape forcing a nurse friend of mine to release a child from the ER into the custody of his father who clearly put him there. His father killed him 2 days later. A cop started lecturing me after 10:30 at night for being in the park. Park curfew was 11. He kept me there until after curfew, then gave me a ticket. That's entrapment if I recall correctly. My best friend had 2 kids with his wife, and said wife then left him for her very rich boss. She and the boss wanted custody of the kids, so they used the boss' wealth to basically bankrupt my friend in legal battles. Every time the court was leaning towards a joint custody ruling, they'd introduce some new evidence or delaying tactic. They knew if they just kept dragging it out again and again, he'd run out of money and give up, which is eventually what happened. Now he has very limited access to his own kids, and such access he has is routinely denied, ignored by the ex-wife. Because what are you going to do about it? You want a legal battle like last time? I don't understand how people are so cruel. A neighbor getting evicted for not paying her rent 1 month while she was in a coma in the hospital. The apartments had a super strict policy that you had to pay by the 5th, online, and that if the company didn't receive payment by the 13th, including fees, they would start the eviction process, and if everything, now including lawyer fees, wasn't paid by the 17th, you were probably lived in a crappy area with a lot of bad tenants. But I don't know of anywhere the eviction process doesn't take months, unless she was in a hotel or assisted living something. I used to run a software company, had a digital agency hire me to work on a banking contract they had and were losing due to their rubbish offshore dev team. I go on site to the bank, save the contract, finish and deliver the software. Took over 3 months to do. Over this time the agency kept dragging out my invoices, paying small bits and pieces and always saying they would pay tomorrow. After the contract was done they declared bankrupt. 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 Social services allowing a rapist access to his child who was conceived through that rape, thus forcing the victim to maintain contact. No matter how often I read articles about this, it's never going to get easier for me to digest. I can't imagine the stress the mothers go through. A good friend of mine has trouble keeping work due to his mental illness, very mild autism. Fully competent, but can't navigate the politics of most jobs. He was on a job seeker payment while between jobs. As part of this he has to attend regular appointments, talk about what interviews he's had, etc. He recently missed an appointment. The night before, he was rushed to hospital, and at the time of the appointment was lying in a table having surgery, but he hadn't told them at least 2 days before, so his payment was cut off. 2 days before, he wasn't aware of any issues, let alone ones needing surgery. A guy went to prison for raping his very young daughter. They released him, and he had to be released back to the home. Social services wouldn't help because now the girls are old enough to tell someone and lock their doors at night if he rapes them. The mother couldn't move out because she didn't have the money, and couldn't refuse the rapist entry because his name was on the deed. How in the heck were the kids not pulled from the house instantly? Not a personal experience, but extending copyright because you want to keep profiting off of stories that you didn't come up with. Disney makes some dang good movies, but they're a horrible corporation and have, because of their copyright madness, left a massive dent in the world. I get their desire to protect the mouse, I do, but the fact they are ensuring nothing will ever enter public domain again to do it is unacceptable. Hospital doctor, drunk unhinged, botched a routine surgery on an infant. Child will forever be dependent on family and public benefits. Is a complete vegetable. Hospital's insurance and highbrow attorneys destroyed any chance of the family of 5 immigrants receiving anything. Mom is slowly working herself to death. Dad has lost everything and their other children suffer like no child I've ever known. I think of them often. I believe the doctor went to rehab and is back practicing. That's not lawful evil, that's dickhead evil. Companies artificially raising the price of life-saving medicines just because they can. Bonus if they market it as a good thing for the people they're potentially killing. My BF is an insulin-dependent diabetic, and my mom has some severe food allergies. I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to work for Quest, who was bought out by CenturyLink. A guy bought a no-frills landline for like $10. No long distance, no caller ID, no anything. Just a landline. Why? Dial-up internet, of course. Only, he failed. He called his ISP from his modem and left it on for an entire month. Turns out, it was a long distance number. He didn't know. What happened next was a $25k phone bill. Now this is your average Joe working a regular job who has a tiny home. Dude worked in an extra $10 into his budget so that he could have internet. It's the little things in life. Only now he's drowning. He made 2 payments of $500 apiece to try to take care of his bill, but he would never be able to pay the whole thing. He called me, begging and even crying for help. How the system worked is whoever waived anything took a penalty. It didn't matter if it was a mistake or legit. Waiving anything gave the employee waiving it a penalty, and it was a sales job. Not to mention that $25k couldn't be waived by anyone but upper management. Nobody was willing to waive his bill, even though he already paid $1,000 towards it. Fact is, the company wasn't out anything. The infrastructure was already in place. They would have made a profit on just his paying his monthly bill. But nope. The way the corp saw it was that he owed the money, and therefore, no matter how it would destroy his life, he had to pay it back. However, that wasn't the main motivation. The company can write off that loss as a loss, and as such, his defaulting on his debt is more valuable. What can you do? Multi-level marketing companies. Most distributors don't even make money, and are then told they're the problem. Not the business plan or product price quality. Applying on plans that aren't available to the public are held up as models of success. You're encouraged to value only friends and family who are customers. If they tell you the truth, they are jealous haters of the success you haven't achieved yet. My favorite part about the MLM plan is that it heavily encourages you to get more people to sell the same crap you're selling, which in turn oversaturates the market for the items, as well as making people less likely to buy from you. Buddy of mine had a court case. I showed for moral support and saw the most racist bulls I have ever seen. Cop pulled over 2 young black guys for no reason, pulled his weapon on them and yelled at them to get out of the car and walk backward toward his. He put them in cuffs in the back of his car, searched their car, found nothing, so wrote them tickets for walking on the highway. That's what they were in court for. The men explained to the judge, he forced us to walk on the highway. He was pointing a gun at us. Judge found them guilty. Still makes my blood boil. Crap man, that's just horrible. NSF fees. You don't have enough money, so the bank charges you lots of money. Similarly payday loans. It's really expensive to be poor. A decently attractive woman I used to work with started dating another coworker. He was kind of homely dokey looking guy, but he was super nice, really smart, and had a very high paying position. Eventually they got married and he thought life was perfect. In the first year he bought her whatever she wanted, a huge new house, a nice sports car. He even paid for her to get some plastic surgery, including a boob job. Within 18 months of marriage it came out that she had been cheating on him with multiple men, including men from work. No one hid it. Over the next several months, as the divorce came and went, she continued to sleep with men co-workers. She even had several open relationships, figuratively and literally. It was clear she only married the poor guy for his money. On top of that she needlessly flaunted her infidelity and rubbed his face in all her post-marriage flings. Then one day the guy didn't show up to work and no one could get in touch with him. After a few days his manager called the police requesting a wellness check. They found that he had killed himself over the weekend. Whoa, a lot of douchebags in that story. That one lady on the news who reported the little girl for selling lemonade I think in front of her apartment complex for not having a license to do so? Yeah, that was odd. I work for a Porsche race team, and one of our competitors always had like stupid amounts of luxurious crap at the track. They basically constructed a hotel everywhere they went so that the owner got a premium experience. Come to find out this guy is the original payday loan guy. He for all intents and purposes started it in the US. Well, as he acquired wealth doing this, a lot of people were getting frustrated that they had to spend $900 to repay a $100 loan, so lawmakers made it illegal to charge the interest rates he was doing. So instead, he put his company HQ on an Indian reservation so he could continue doing that. My coworkers were looking on his website and reading through the terms and fees and whatnot, and we found the cheapest way to repay a $100 loan was $960. As you can imagine, especially if you got a loan larger than that, it became near impossible to climb out of it. The really terrible part is if you miss or are unable to make a payment, they would immediately seize your vehicle and sell it. Thousands of families lost their homes and cars to this guy. Fortunately, he was convicted of racketeering for other shady things in his business and is currently in prison. I didn't witness this per se, but I heard about it later in life since I was too young at the time. My father had started a cleaning business which was taking off. He would clean carpets and do janitor work in large industrial buildings. One of his biggest clients didn't pay him for a while, and ending up owing upwards of $80K. My father then stopped working for them and kept insisting on getting his money. He stopped insisting after he showed up at the building one time and had a gun pointed at his face. Apparently the building belonged to some mafia, and the guy he pulled a gun on him said that he would kill him if he showed up again. My father proceeded to suing them. They ended up winning after a long court battle because they obviously had the resources to afford amazing lawyers. My father then had to declare bankruptcy, sell the house, and ended up starting from zero again in an apartment with my mom and I, 2 years old, mostly lawful I guess, or illegal masquerading as lawful. I'm confused how your dad let them owe him 80 grand, especially for cleaning. That had to have taken a long time for that debt to accrue. Really sucks for your dad and he didn't deserve that, but why didn't he stop working for them long before that? A little late to the party here, but I want to share my story. My company recently cleaned up a church after it flooded. We dried it out, working directly with the insurance company on billing. All the work is complete. Their contents are all boxed nicely, cleaned, and returned. The insurance company cuts the check to the pastor. The pastor suddenly has a check for around $30K sitting in his lap, and suddenly doesn't feel like paying us. He tries to negotiate, but we don't accept that, as we already negotiate with the insurance company. The pastor turns around at us with, "I guess I'll just keep the money. What are you going to do? Sue a church? We'll make it a PR nightmare." A year later, and we still haven't collected that check. Theft of services is a crime, and anyone who can't get past "thou shalt not steal" needs to be exposed. I'm working at a very fancy hotel in Europe, and a few weeks ago there was a big conference of all the biggest asset management firms, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, and the like, going on. They booked out a whole floor and had literal backroom meetings. 5-8 important guys from the different companies would sit together in a locked, emptied out hotel room for 30 minutes and do business. Remember, these are all supposed to be competitors. Only they could leave and enter. When one meeting was over, they would mix up and again meet in a room to talk. This was happening in 20 rooms simultaneously for 3 days. They also had lots of ominous packages delivered to their rooms. I don't know what was going on exactly, but it sure as heck was shady as heck. Sounds like wild orgies. I used to be involved in a local non-profit that placed newborns and infants, taken from their mothers as a result of drug abuse, into foster homes with families qualified to adopt. Family reunification is always the goal in dependency court, but 75% of the time, the birth mother's demons are too strong and she loses parental rights, and the baby is adopted by the foster parents. 25% of the time, the mom is able to overcome addiction and get her baby back. It's crushing for the foster parents, but understandable that if the mom is stable, she should be able to raise her own child. Sometimes the story doesn't end there and things turn sour. One of our couples raised a baby girl from 2 days old. After 4 years of court hearings, rotating social workers, supervised visits, and family therapy with the child and birth mom, the court eventually decided to permanently reunify birth mom and the child. Unfortunately, she was removed again from her birth mom's custody within a year, but our foster parents couldn't get her back. She ended up in a foster home with strangers who abused her, and she died from abuse injuries within months of placement. Now a child is dead and the 3 parents she's ever known are heartbroken. It was torture to watch play out, and totally legal. I can't bear to work with the organization anymore. It's too much to take. I realize a couple days after writing this that it's not exactly lawful evil, it's just our crappy dependency system. This story, while not common, is not atypical. Everyone who works in dependency has a story like this. The real lawful evil is how badly we, as a society, treat the most vulnerable people in our population, over and over. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.